Welcome to the Lifelong Rivals Sports Podcast. I'm Zach Kaufman, here with Ryan D'Amico. Take us through the Eagles-Vikings game.
Yeah, I mean, what a game it was. For the casual fan, not a very good game because it was a blowout. But for an Eagles fan like myself, I mean, it was heaven. It was as close as heaven as you could get. Although not the start. I mean, you couldn't have asked for a worse start for the Eagles, and you couldn't ask for a better start for the Vikings. I mean, that place was rocking. That place was loud. I mean, after the national anthem, after the Eagle flight that they do before, the game. And I mean, that place was jumping. You get the defense on the field start. Usually that's how the Eagles have always been. They like to get the defense on the field first, get the emotion going, the crowd going, and give the Vikings credit. I mean, they shut that place up. They really did it with a nice methodical drive, which was basically through the ground, which, was surprising because the Eagles had the number one rush defense this year. And they were just kind of methodically picking up, first downs on the ground and taking kind of what the defense was giving them through the air with some underneath out routes and whatnot. And then they took their shot on second down at the 25-yard line where there was some confusion between the linebackers, and Kyle Rudolph ran a post route to the corner of the end zone and ran right by Najee Good, who was playing for the injured Ellerby, who is actually their second string middle linebacker. Najee Good, who was playing in this game, was actually their third string middle linebacker. So it kind of showed early on that he struggled, and the Vikings took advantage of it, and they go up 7-0, boom, right off the bat. And I'm like, no, you cannot. This cannot be happening. And I'm interested to know what you thought after. Did you think, wow, this, this is. I didn't expect this, or were you thinking Philly could be in trouble because Minnesota's defense is so good? What were your thoughts after that first drive? Because for me, I'll be honest, I was worried because, as I think most people, I wouldn't say even most people, everybody expected this to be a defensive game. And I don't think many people thought the Eagles would score over 20 points. So to get down 7-0 in the first drive, I was concerned. Well, I mean, what were your thoughts after that drive?
I didn't have any major thoughts. I thought it was a good drive for the Vikings for sure, and it was good for them to get up early, but I wasn't too concerned for the Eagles at that point. If after what we'll talk about next, after some of that goes on, I was more concerned about the Eagles. But after this touchdown, the Eagles have a good team. I was confident they can come back from 7-0, even though the Vikings defense has been great throughout the season. I'm still not too concerned. If the Vikings had made it 14 or 21,
right,
definitely would have been concerned. Or if the Eagles came out and looked like absolute garbage, so anything like that, I would have been concerned. But at this point, nothing really stood out on the drive. It was just a solid, methodical drive, finished with kind of what the Vikings rely on. Kyle Rudolph has been kind of that red zone guy for them throughout the year. That's what he does well. He's very good at having those 40-yard and a touchdown kind of game.
Yep. Excuse me. No, you're right. And then after the Eagles' first drive, which was full of missed opportunities, second play of the game, they take a deep shot to Torrey Smith, which is in his hands. He should catch, and that's kind of been the MO of Torrey Smith this year. Was he had his fair share of drops this year, and it really got annoying for Eagles fans. They started to get a little pissed off this year with Torrey Smith not making those catches. That's kind of the reason we brought you in here. And that would have been a huge gain. That would have been probably down to the 10 or 15-yard line. It's a drop. Next play, they come out, and Trey Burton, one of their tight ends, is wide open along the sideline. And for whatever reason, he decides to jump, which we talked about it last week. The unnecessary jump that athletes do for whatever reason, and he lands out of bounds. He only gets 1 foot in, and the Eagles have to punt. And this is where I kind of said to myself, I was like, damn, it sucks they have to punt, but they were plays to be made. And I turned and said it to my friends that I was with. I said, guys, I know it sucks they have to punt. I know we're pissed off, but there was opportunities there. I'm pretty sure we can move the ball. I told him, I was like, I think we can move the ball in this offense. I really think that. And then, the next drive, which is the turning point in the game, by the Vikings, where I believe it's third down, and Chris
you
Long,
missed what got him the ball there on that punt.
What?
With the fair catch interference.
Fair catch interference.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, they had a fair catch.
That advanced the ball. Yeah.
It advanced the ball, right? I mean, he didn't give him the ball back. I mean,
right.
They punted it, and Shelton Gibson, who is a rookie wide receiver who hasn't even played hardly at all this year, but played because Ellerby was out and they needed a roster spot, and he was the guy. Yeah, fair catch interference. It advances the ball to, I think, the 30. 25 or the 30. I want to say it was the 30. And, it's just like, God, just mistake after mistake after mistake. It's like, come on, settle down.
Because that's what concerned me with the Eagles early on. Because you said about some of those mistakes offensively, the Torrey Smith drop, that Trey Burton I've loved him this year. I thought he's been a very solid player. But that looked like the middle school kids I've worked with and taught or coached that just like, they're very new to football. They do weird things like that. And to see from Trey Burton, where he wasn't even close to like getting his second foot down in bounds or even making the attempt to like hit that toe tap. It was just a weird non-awareness of where he was. And then to follow it up with that fair catch interference, it just looked like the Eagles were off to a rough start there. And that's one of those things. They got the Falcons a win against the Rams when the Rams started making special teams mistakes. And that's the point I was kind of concerned about the Eagles to see how they responded. If the Vikings came right down and scored again, then I'd start getting really concerned about the Eagles' chances in this game.
Right, and the Vikings didn't go down and score and go up 14-0 because on probably the play of the one. This was one of two plays of the game for me, and we'll talk about the other one in a second. But this play was enormous, where Chris Long comes around the left end, bottom of the screen, and hits Case Keenum's arm, and as he's trying to throw an out route to Adam Thielen, and because his arm's hit, the ball kind of flutters, and Patrick Robinson intercepts it at midfield. Starts to take it up the left sideline, and great, ball skills to cut it all the way back across the field. Gets a great block at the end from Ronald Darby, who kind of got the worst of it, kind of got put on his butt, but hey, he got in the way. He did what he wanted to do, and Patrick Robinson sneaks in the far right pylon for a pick six, and that really, I think, the place went nuts. Plus, you could hear that kind of sigh relief, I think, from the fans, the coaches, the players, everyone involved in that game for the Eagles. You could hear that sigh of relief, like, all right, there we go. We're going to be all right. We're good. And that play, you can't explain how big of a play that was.
That was so impressive. Like Robinson's awareness to cut it across the field like that, and to see – because it looked like what he saw was some of the skill position players ahead of him on the left side, and he cut it back where the linemen were. That he could definitely outrun. And I loved Darby's effort on that. He came from out of the screen to out of the view of the field there to make that block, even though, like you said, he got kind of laid out. That really set up that touchdown as Robinson went the whole way to the right side and finished in the end zone. I love to see that extra effort, even when he's not getting the recognition and getting that touchdown. Love to see that on any team from any player.
No, you're absolutely right. You really are. And the word that was kind of been going around the Eagles this year has been resiliency. And, I mean, they have just been such a resilient team. And this is just another example of, down 7-0, nothing's going our way. We're at home. Fans are getting a little restless. Boom. Pick six, huge play, turns the momentum around, back to the Eagles. And, after that, it was just a snowball effect, and things really started to gear up for the Eagles. So obviously they kick off to Minnesota. They have to punt. Eagles have a nice defensive series there, and then the Eagles go on a 12-play, 75-yard drive, Zach, that eats up almost 6.5 minutes on the clock. It starts in the first quarter, ends in the second quarter, and is that was the drive you really saw Nick Foles get into rhythm. That was the drive where you really saw Foles looking sharp and really completing some really nice balls to Jeffrey and Ertz, and he mixed in the run really well, and you just kind of got a feeling like, oh, okay, he's starting to find something here. And like I said, move the ball down the field, and then LeGarrette Blount takes it in from 11 yards out, and it was great because it was right at our end zone where he scored, and he fucking just barreled over Andrew Sendejo. Yeah. And, but as a safety or a cornerback, who would want to tackle LeGarrette Blount? He's got a full head of steam running at you. You're the only thing in between him and the goal line. Like, yikes. And he punches it in. The Eagles go up 14-7, and it's like, wow. Remember when it was 7-0 Minnesota? Now all of a sudden it's 14-7 Eagles. I mean, that drive was all Nick Foles. I mean, in my opinion, that was all Nick Foles. Yeah, they had some nice runs mixed in there, but that drive was about Nick Foles getting into rhythm, taking a deep breath, and being like, all right, I'm okay. I'm going to be good tonight, and this is going to be a good night.
Mm-hmm. And they got it to a lot of players on that drive there that resulted in the score. Ajayi was getting fed a lot. Ertz had a couple catches there. Alshon Jeffrey had a catch at one point on that drive. They were very methodical in taking that down. One of my comments during this, it just felt like a very long first quarter. Like a lot happened in that first quarter, even though it was still 7-7 by the end. And then the Eagles pulled up 14-7 there slightly after the second quarter started. I just felt like it was filled with a lot of events there.
No, it definitely was. I mean, this game wasn't short of, exciting plays. I mean, it really wasn't. There was a lot of action in this game. And another exciting play happens then on Minnesota's ensuing drive where, look, you got to give them credit. I mean, they put together a nice drive there where they're kind of moving the ball down the field, kind of, mixing the run and the pass. They got a nice chunk play. I think it was Stephon Diggs along the left sideline where he stayed in bounds nicely. Yeah. Got it down to about the 20, 25. Then they get the ball, move it down to the 16-yard line. It's third down. Okay. It's third down. They're either going to kick a field goal and make it 14-10, or it's going to be 14-14 here in a couple minutes. That's kind of what you're thinking, what you're expecting. They're inside the red zone. They're going to get something out of it. And then Derek Barnett, rookie first-round pick out of Tennessee, comes around the left side. And great play by him, but that was an impossible block for that tight end to try and make. Like, I did not like that play design. I don't know if you caught it when it happened or, but the tight end, they asked the tight end to come all the way from the right side underneath, and run the heel line and try to cut off Barnett as he's coming down the edge. And he, basically whiffed. I mean, but that's such a difficult block for that tight end to make, especially on a guy like Derek Barnett, who was so quick off the ball. That's really poor coaching there. But anyway, nice play Barnett gets around the edge so quickly. Gets the strip sack on Case Keenum, and then Chris Long, who we've talked about on this show before. The respect that I have for Chris Long, and who has become one of my favorite players on this team, comes up with a huge fumble recovery. And this, to me, was the point where I was starting to think, okay, this is starting to really move into our favor. The momentum is seriously on our side now. 14-7, we got the ball back. We kept them. They didn't get any points on that drive. Mm-hmm. I mean, in your opinion, what play was bigger, this play or the pick six?
I think the pick six, because it really started the momentum there for the Eagles. After we talked about it, just seemed like everything was going against them at that point. Down by 7, making some mistakes on the previous drive and on special teams.
Yeah, no, yeah. I think I lean that way too. But I mean, this play too was extremely large because
Right.
this kept it a 7-point game. Who knows what happens if the Vikings figure out a way to, only score 3, but hell, what happens if they tie the game and they score a touchdown there? So, and then after that, Eagles get the ball to close to midfield, and they get the third down, and the Eagles had not converted a 3rd and 10 or longer while Nick Foles was the quarterback up until this point.
Wow.
Up until this point in this game, in this play, when Nick Foles was the quarterback, they had not completed a 3rd and 10 or longer. Think about that. Nick Foles had played 3 full games and a quarter this season as the Eagles quarterback. And another quarter, because one quarter in the Dallas game and then the first quarter in this game. So he played 3.5 games and didn't have a 3rd and 10 or longer conversion. And then this play happened where somehow he doesn't get sacked. Somehow he doesn't get stripped of the ball. Anyone that's watched football knows Nick Foles isn't the best athlete in the world. Where, he doesn't have the escapability that Carson Wentz has. But somehow he moves his way through the pocket, keeps his eyes downfield, and sees Alshon Jeffrey running down the right sideline with hardly anyone around him and just heaves it and throws a beautiful ball, hits Jeffrey in stride, and it's 21-7 with 1:18 left in the first half. And I'm telling you, this is the point where and I know there was a whole other half to play, and I know that there was still 1:18 left. This is the point where I said to myself, I think they're going to win this game. Like, everything was just kind of going their way. They're at home. That place was a nut. They had all the momentum in the world. Foles was really dialed in at that point. This is the point where I thought to myself, damn, it's looking good.
I didn't quite feel it to that effect. So you're
telling me you thought that Case Keenum and that offense could score 14 or more straight points on that defense? That's the way I looked at it. I turned to one of the guys that was behind us, someone we didn't know, we were just talking to at the game, and I said to him, dude, I'm telling you, that might be enough because I don't see Case Keenum and this offense scoring 14 straight points to tie the game. I just couldn't see it. I couldn't see it.
Because the thing for me, I could see them scoring 2 touchdowns in the entire second half, but that would still rely on the defense stopping the Eagles for
Correct.
0 points, which I hadn't really thought through at that time. But yeah, it's true. That would have been a very difficult comeback. But I still felt like 21-7 is within range. Yeah, the Vikings have had their games. They've been able to put up some big points, especially the Saints game the previous week. We've seen them do it before, even though obviously that's not against the Eagles defense, which is significantly better. But I still felt like the Vikings had a chance at that point. And another guy that stood out to me at this point, just from kind of small things, he picked up a big first down on this drive, was Corey Clement. He made some very nice plays on blitz pickup early on. Just kind of some great effort plays to really get out and because
this was the drive where he spun away from Harrison Smith on third down, right? Yeah.
Yep, and that was a big first down pickup there. He was that move he made on the ground, but he had a couple others on this drive and 1 or 2 of the ones before with just I know there was one he made a diving block just to kind of give I don't remember if it was the Jeffrey touchdown or not, but just to give Foles a little extra time where he's able to make a completion. He continued to do little things for him. And I wasn't even sure. I had to put him in as number 30 at first because I wasn't sure who he was. Like, he doesn't usually stand out as someone that's significant for him. But shout out to Corey Clement. He did some good things there for him. Some kind of small things, but they were important for the Eagles.
Small things, but in the grand scheme of things, they're big. And he's had a nice year. Undrafted free agent, running back from Wisconsin, local kid. He's actually from the Philly area. He's right over. Grew up in New Jersey, so this was his hometown squad, the Eagles. So he's kind of living out a dream right now. He's making the most of every opportunity. So then the next drive, so the Vikings get the ball back. You might have to refresh my memory. I'm pretty sure they pick up a first down on a slant to their inside slot receiver to get them to about
Wright. Yep.
Jarius Wright. It gets them to, I think, like their own 45 or so.
Yeah.
And then they go 3 and out after that, right? If I remember correctly. I'm pretty sure that the Eagles defense held.
They kept trying to feed Jerick McKinnon out of the backfield.
Right?
Yeah.
Yep. Certainly on those swing passes. It's like,
right.
All right, we'll give you 2 yards. That's fine. Go ahead. Stop the clock. Let us have our timeouts. Sure. Mm-hmm. So then they don't convert on third down. They punt. And this is getting back to what I said earlier in this podcast about Doug Peterson coaching to win this game, and then the Jacksonville Jaguars were kind of coaching just praying and hoping that they didn't let that lead slip away. There was –
because the Jaguars had almost the exact same situation at the end of the half where they just nailed it.
Yeah, and there was 29 seconds left in the half. Mm-hmm. Eagles had 3 timeouts.
Right.
The drive started at the 20? Did it start at the 20?
Yes. Yep. It was at the 20.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So it started at the 20. And and you're thinking, okay, they're up 21-7. They're at home. Defense is playing well. Just take it to the half. You're going to get the ball at the start of the third quarter. So what the hell? Peter says no. He says no. We're going for this. We're going to try to get at least 3 out of this. Starts the drive off with a nice swing pass out of the backfield to Jay Ajayi, who gets 12, 13 yards out of it. And then the next play. Dude, the next play. So watching it live, obviously I was, you don't see the whole play kind of like you do on TV. So you're kind of focusing on the quarterback and I didn't see the move that Zach Ertz put on Harrison Smith until later that night when I got home and watched the replay again on YouTube.
Right.
Bro, that move was nasty. That little the outward fake, and then boom, just cut it upfield when he got lazy. That was sick, dude.
Yeah, he destroyed the defender on that one. That was an impressive route there to completely shake the defense.
And he gets wide open. I mean, wide open. And that's the big play on the drive that gets them into Minnesota territory. And then the next play is a screen to Ajayi again. And he takes it all the way down inside the 20. They call a timeout with 4 seconds left. And Jake Elliott bangs through a 38-yard field goal. And just like that, it's 24-7 at the half of Eagles. And what started as an awful start ends with the Eagles scoring 24 unanswered to close out the first half, and they're up 24-7 going in the first half. That was the most points that Minnesota defense allowed in a half in any half this year. That's the most yards the Minnesota defense allowed in any half this year. That was the most passing yards the Minnesota defense allowed in any half this year. And the Eagles dissected them with Nick fucking Foles as their quarterback.
Yeah, I was very impressed.
So Eagles get the ball, and this is where it just got even better. So the Eagles get the ball coming out of the half to start, and they start with a few dink and dunk completions to Torrey Smith to get them a first down, and then was this the drive, Zach? I'm not sure if you have it written down, but was this a drive where I feel like they got another first down to keep the drive alive?
To Jeffrey. Foles took a big hit and to complete it.
Right. It was he did. He stepped in the pocket. I believe it was Anthony Barr that was bearing down on him and hit him as he was throwing it. And Foles just stood in the pocket, delivered up all to Jeffrey, and he picked up a huge first down. And then your boy, Corey Clement's in the game, and he takes the handoff. And it's another flea flicker. We had 3 out of the 4 teams this weekend
right.
run a flea flicker. None run as well as this one, though, where Clement gets the pitch, pitches it right back to Foles, and Foles just unloads and heaves it 41 yards down to the goal line, where Torrey Smith makes a great catch. It's a great throw, and he gets just inside the front left pylon for a touchdown. And it's 31-7 Eagles, and at that point, was that the point? Was that the point, or was the field goal before the half the point where you were like, all right, it's over?
The field goal before the half. That game management was just incredible. They especially coming directly off that Jacksonville game where they had almost the identical situation with 3 timeouts, and they nailed it to send them into halftime. For the Eagles to do that and march right down and get those points, I was very, very impressed with that. So that's the point I felt like they really had the game.
Right. Once this play happened, Zach, that stadium was nothing but a big party from that point on. I mean,
sure.
it's very rare you get to be in a game like this. It's even more rare when it's a blowout like this, and you can just enjoy it, bask in it. Just, you're there with all Eagles fans, and you're just, like I said, it's just one big party because the game's over. Like, they're not coming back. Like, Case Keenum's not bringing them back and scoring, 30 straight points. That ain't happening, So at that point, it was just a party after that. And, the Vikings, they tried getting some drives together. They had a nice drive together where they got all the way down inside, the 10-yard line. Failed to get it in like the Falcons did the week before on the first 3 plays. And then Adam Thielen almost makes a circus catch.
Right.
Where, Keenum just kind of throws it to him. It's kind of like a 50-50 ball. And it kind of bounces off of him, bounces in the air. He then lands on his back and appears to make a nice catch. But the ball, hits the ground, bounces up back to him. It's overturned. Ball goes back on downs to the Eagles. And then they just, make another kind of championship drive. Then 12 plays, 92 yards. 7 minutes and 11 seconds. That's capped off with a Nick Foles pass to Alshon Jeffrey for 5 yards. And it's 38-7. And that's the final score. And I didn't see one person. I thought this game was very split, like between, betting purposes as far as like, money on the Falcons or the Vikings and the Eagles. And I thought it was very split, like national media wise, like people picking the Vikings and people picking the Eagles. And it was also everybody, and myself included, I'm guilty of it, thought this was a 17-14, 2017 game at the most, maybe. I mean, did anyone ever see one of these teams scoring 38 points? I mean, but look, that's where football's great. And and one of our good buddies, Chaz, he actually made a Facebook post saying like he's been watching football for so long. He's played football. He's played in the NFL. He's seen a lot, and we've seen a lot. I mean, we've watched football our whole lives too. He made a great point saying the game that Nick Foles played on Christmas night was one of the worst quarterback games he's ever seen, and I agree with him. Nick Foles looked terrible. I mean, he looked like he'd never played quarterback before. And then he comes out on Sunday in the NFC Championship game, goes 26 of 33, 352 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Like, he finished the game with 15 straight completions. That, it's crazy. It's hard for me to put into words this kind of performance. Not only from Nick Foles, but just as the team, just from the team. And it was special. It was special to be at, special to witness. And I think the difference between this team that's going to the Super Bowl for the Eagles and the team 04 that went to the Eagles, that team, that was their 4th straight year in the NFC Championship game. They had lost the previous 3. I feel like that 04 NFC Championship game was them getting over the hump. I feel like that NFC Championship game in 04 was their Super Bowl. I feel like they were like, we finally did it. We finally got to the Super Bowl. You still had one more game to play. This team, they celebrated. They were happy. Every person that did an interview after the game said, we have one more game to play. We're not done. We won the Super Bowl. I think that's the biggest difference. And I think they're capable of winning it. And, unreal story. I mean, just an unreal story, with Nick Foles coming in. And, I mean, I'll be honest. The last thing I'll say before I let you get your points in is I remember one of my friends texted me after the Chargers game when Carson Wentz got hurt. And he said, hey, he's not an Eagles fan. He said, hey, congratulations on winning the division. And this was more just, immediate anger and frustration right after the game, me responding. But I said, it doesn't matter. The season is over. And if you would have told me that night that Nick Foles was going to come in and lead the Eagles to the Super Bowl, I'd have said, you're drunk, you're high, you're an idiot. Like, I wouldn't have believed you. Mm-hmm. There's a point, and I feel like a lot of people say, oh, you didn't believe in him, you didn't believe. It's not about you don't believe in the person. It's just about, like, that's hard to fathom.
Yeah.
It's hard to fathom Nick Foles leading the Eagles to the Super Bowl. But here we are. He did it. Crazy.
And it's been a very impressive run. That's one of the things I like about this Eagles team. As a Cowboys fan, as an Eagles hater, I love the storyline of them being underdogs, of them doing this without Carson Wentz, with Nick Foles in there instead. One of the things we talked about when Wentz went down with an injury is with Foles, he's one of the better backups in the league regardless. Yep. So they're in a better situation. Because I remember all those years with the Cowboys when Tony Romo would get hurt and we'd have some terrible quarterback off the street come in and it would be a complete disaster. And he's had starting experience before. He's had some success. And no one expected this at all from him. And incredibly impressive run here by the Eagles. I'm torn on what I'm going to do for the Super Bowl. Probably not cheer for anyone. I want to see like an exciting, fun game. Yeah. But I love these kind of storylines. I do. It's what gets me. I hate that it's a team that I always have hated, and their fans are so annoying and make up most of my best friends. But I still have a huge respect for them. And it's tough too, because they're the underdog going against the dynasty that's always been there. And I always love that story. Right. I don't know what to do with myself.
It is tough. I mean, it's tough. It's a tough position for the people around here because most of the people around here are Eagles haters for one, and they also hate Tom Brady and hate the Patriots. So it's like they're torn. And, the one thing I did say, though, was, and that was one of the reasons why in the back of my mind I was thinking, like, if Foles can just not look, I wasn't expecting Foles to have a performance like he did on Sunday night, but I was just thinking to myself, okay, if Nick Foles can just come in, have one of those, like a 210-yard pass, a 10-yard passing game, throw a touchdown or two and no interceptions, I feel like those kind of games would be enough for him and the Eagles to win. And that was kind of what he did against the Falcons. I think he threw for just over 200 yards, didn't throw a touchdown because all their came on the ground. Their only one touchdown came on the ground, but he didn't turn the ball over. And I was thinking, like, the team around him is very good. I mean, this is a very well put together team. I mean, the one weakness, quote unquote, that this team had in the beginning of the year to midway through the year was the secondary. And Malcolm Jenkins and Riley McLeod are one of the best safety duos in the league. And the cornerback positions, you got the trade with Ronald Darby. He got hurt at the beginning of the year. He's been back since midseason. He's been a great addition. You talked about him during our breakdown. Mm-hmm. And then Jalen Mills, who was a seventh-round pick 2 years ago out of LSU, has really turned a corner and has really turned into a good cornerback. I'm not saying he's great. I'm not saying he's, an all-pro in the future, but he's a good cornerback, and he's not a liability. And that's kind of what the Eagles have had in years past, to where, the cornerback position has been their downfall. They have turned in some really good performances, and they shut down Julio Jones and Mohamed Sanu and Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs, the two highest receiving yardage tandems in the league, receiving-wise. One was Julio Jones and Mohamed Sanu. They had, 1,200 receiving yards combined. And then two was Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen. I think they had 1,100 receiving yards combined this year. And the Eagles shut both of them down, all four of those guys down. Not one of those players had a touchdown in neither one of those two games. And, that's why I think the Eagles are as far as they are. Yeah, it's part Nick Foles, but the big picture is this is just a great collective team. And football is the ultimate team sport, and I don't think it should be as a shock as it is to most people. You hear Nick Foles, yes, that's a shock. But the team, the collective team that is the Philadelphia Eagles, is a very good team and will be for years to come.
I'm in full agreement with you. I think that secondaries really stood out, like you've said. The biggest thing that changed for me coming into the season, I had a big question mark when it came to their receivers, and they really impressed.
You did.
We came into the season. Alshon Jeffrey has had a huge injury history. I didn't know if he'd survive the season. Torrey Smith has historically been a big play or nothing kind of guy. He has plenty of 1 catch for 10-yard games and then plenty of 2 catches for 82 yards and 2 touchdown kind of games. He's been like that. Nelson Aguilar last year was deactivated because he couldn't catch the ball. He had no confidence. He looked terrible. People were like, why was this guy ever a first-round pick? He has been so reliable this year. Zach Ertz has been their go-to guy. This receiving group has really come together, and the depth is very impressive. And we've talked about it. Trey Burton, that Zach Ertz misses a time, he fills right in, and they're almost exactly the same team where he's scored touchdowns, he's able to get him the first down. Same thing with the running back position. It's so deep. They lose Darren Sproles. It's okay. They trade for Jay Ajayi. They've got LeGarrette Blount. Corey Clement makes plays. They're a deep team, which is it's going to benefit them for years down the road. Right now, it benefits them where they don't have that risk of other teams. We saw it with the Cowboys. They lose Zeke Elliott. They're not the same team. But the Eagles have a lot of very good players and very good depth behind those very good players. I've been impressed with that this year, and that's where I had some doubts.
That's a great point. That's a great point. They really have amazing depth, and the depth at defensive line that might be the position that has the best depth. Their starting defensive line is great to begin with. Fletcher Cox, Timmy Jernigan, Brandon Graham, and Vinnie Curry. That is probably the best starting defensive line in all of football. And then, those guys get tired. That's okay. We went out and brought in guys like Chris Long. We drafted Derek Barnett in the first round. You got a big body defensive tackle backup in Bo Allen, who has had a very nice year. So, the guys that they're rotating in and out on the defensive line to keep them fresh, that's important too. I think that's going to help them immensely next week, in 2 weeks in the Super Bowl. So, you're right. It's just been a great story for the Eagles, and I am just hoping and praying that it's not close but no cigar like it seems like it always is with this team. We'll see what happens. We'll see. Thoughts, though, let's digress here quickly and touch on the Vikings. I saw I don't want to describe this, image, I guess you could say, of some of the games that they have next year. Holy shit. You talk about schedule. Dude, their road schedule next year is ridiculous. Like, they have to go to Philly, New England, Seattle, Green Bay. Like, their road schedule is almost impossible. And then I think at home they have obviously Green Bay again, San Francisco, who should be really improved, and I forget a couple of the others. But their schedule is brutal. And by the way, you have no quarterback under contract now, so they need to figure out what they're going to do there. What's your opinion on the Vikings? Because I think this was I feel like they missed their opportunity. Because I think, real quick, think about this. So Rodgers goes down. Division's pretty much theirs. Okay, we're going to the playoffs. They caught lightning in a bottle with Case Keenum. Mm-hmm. They get that miraculous miracle. Mm-hmm. Carson Wentz gets hurt for the Eagles. You got Nick Foles as their backup quarterback. And they get shellacked by him. Yeah. And by the way, if you could get by Nick Foles and the Eagles, you're playing the Super Bowl at home. To me, the Vikings missed their opportunity, and I think you're going to see them take a step back next year. What's your kind of thought process on them?
It'll be interesting to see what happens with them. I think The defense should stay similar. They do have some aging players. I know Terrence Newman, former Cowboy, but
what's he like? Is he 75 now? Or
I want to say 78.
Oh, okay,
but he was like, he's been around so long. I remember having his rookie card when he came into the year. Like, that was when I was still collecting sports cards.
Kansas State, if I remember correctly.
Yes, exactly correct. For high first round pick. I want to say he was a top 5 pick. He did well there with the Cowboys, and then has been kind of bounced around the league a little bit lately. I think he's something like 38, 39. They say it every single time he's on the field because
I know
he's so much older than everyone else.
He's the player that actually got burned on that Jeffrey touchdown too before the half. So, and
I want to say he was burned as well in the Saints game. I just feel like he's kind of consistently had some issues there. So I still like this team. They'll get Dalvin Cook back, who had a great start to the season there before he had a season-ending injury, unfortunately. Although their running backs were good throughout the season with Latavius Murray and Jerick McKinnon as that combination. So it'd be interesting to see how they use their running backs. I have no idea what to expect from their quarterback situation. I think regardless, none of them are really star options. Between Case Keenum, Sam Bradford, Teddy Bridgewater, none of them have proven consistently to be any kind of top-tier talent. They've all shown signs, but I don't think it's anything to believe in. And I feel like whoever they sign, they're going to have to give big money and hope it doesn't end up being a Joe Flacco.
Would you agree with me, though, that this is the team that never seems to do it, very rarely does it, but these are the kind of teams that I think need to go all in on a quarterback. You need to go out and get the guy that is going to be able to step in. Like, honestly, I think a guy like Alex Smith, whatever money he wants in the offseason, I would give it to him. Is Alex Smith a great player? No. But with these pieces around him and the defense that they have, and I make a great point. I totally forgot about Dalvin Cook coming back.
Yeah.
That would be great for them. But no, they'll probably dick around and bring Bridgewater or bring Keenum back. And sorry, but like you said, they're not long-term answers. So this is the kind of team I wish would go all in on a quarterback. You agree with that?
I do. I think Kirk Cousins would be an amazing fit with a team.
He's another one.
Yeah. But it just seems – I mentioned Joe Flacco specifically because it just seems like that kind of situation. The teams have had success. They want to pay respect to the guy that got him there, which would be Case Keenum. They give him a big contract. He demands more money than what he's worth, and then they're stuck with that over the next 5 years, or usually 3 years, and then they cut him for the next.
Which is such bullshit, because you saw Case Keenum the last game and a half of this season look like you expect Case Keenum to look. That second half against the Saints, he made one good throw, which was the last miracle play, and he played below average in that Eagles game. He's not worth big money. And, you got us this far. Here's a reward. Bullshit. So you're telling me if the Eagles win next Sunday, they're going to keep Nick Foles and trade Carson Wentz? No.
But their option, they have a far better option who's proven himself. The Vikings are a team that are looking at like, do we want mediocre number 1, mediocre number 2, or unproven, unknown number 3?
Right.
Which is Bridgewater. But we've seen it. Brock Osweiler got a monster contract from the Texans. Somebody's going to pay him, and if the Vikings want to keep him, they're going to have to overpay and be stuck with that. And we see it in all sports, it seems. I always think of the NBA that they give someone – the Knicks killed themselves with Amari Stoudemire, who was a great player, overpaying him and having to pay him for year after year after year, and just kind of being stuck there as a fine player, but not worth the max contract he got. That's not what I expect from Keenum, getting a max contract or anything crazy. But I still think he'll get overpaid for what he is.
If I'm the Vikings, I do everything I can to get in the ear of Kirk Cousins or Alex Smith.
Yeah.
I mean, you have Aaron Rodgers coming back in this division. Mm-hmm. Remember that. You need to be able to score points. Mm-hmm. They need to figure that out because, like I said, they don't, and they bring back one of those, bottom shelf quarterbacks,
Yeah.
sorry, you're screwed. So, like I said, though, I think this year was a very big wasted opportunity for the Vikings. It's great to add insult to injury for the Vikings. Oh, not only do you lose to the Eagles, but the Eagles are going to play in your stadium in 2 weeks and try to win a Super Bowl. So that's kind of brutal.
Right. It was still a good run for the Vikings. I don't want to quite put it to that point that it was disappointing, like it was their only opportunity. I think a lot really depends on that quarterback position. I think Case Keenum is a perfect fit for a team like the Broncos to kind of hold over for a year, maybe 2 years, while they try and figure out some kind of situation with a young quarterback that they can bring up and be fine with. I'm very concerned for this Vikings team that they end up overpaying Case Keenum.
I could see it.
Yeah.
I could absolutely see it, and I would not be surprised if it happened. I mean, he's saying all the right things. He wants to be back. He envisions himself in Minnesota. So good luck, because Case Keenum's not a long-term solution.
Right. So it'll be interesting to see where they go from there. Well, quick episode here this week. We are not going into any final thoughts right here. We wanted to cover the AFC Championship. Do you have something for us?
Just a sports final thought, just a brief final thought. Give me your, I guess we'll call it a first final thought. What is your first thought for the Eagles-Patriots Super Bowl? What's the first thought that comes to your mind for the game? Maybe a matchup or a story. Like, what's the first thing you're thinking about with that game? I'll let you think about it for a second. I'll give you mine. I'll let you think about it for a second. Mine, to me, where I think this game can be won, and I'll look at it as the Eagles' perspective, obviously, because I'm an Eagles fan, because everyone's going to pick the Patriots, and that's okay. Yeah. I think where the Eagles can really take this game over is with their front four on defense, because the Patriots have offensive line it's good. I mean, it's okay, but I think that the Eagles' defensive line is significantly better with the depth that they have. And you saw the Jaguars get some pressure on Brady last week. I think the Eagles will get consistently more pressure in the Super Bowl against them, especially on turf, on a fast track. You're not going to worry about footing or anything like that. To me, that's a storyline that I think of in the matchup I think of right away. To where if the Eagles want to win this game, they need to be able to get not just – and I hate when people say you got to get pressure on. You got to get consistent pressure on Brady. You have to. And if they do that, I think they'll find themselves in a situation where they can win.
My first thought immediately is that we're watching one of the greatest of all time, Tom Brady. He will go down in history as probably the best quarterback to ever play the game. He's been incredible, and he still stays like that to this. We saw him bring a comeback here in the AFC Championship game. That's what he does. He just is so good at what he does, and it's someone we're going to be talking about 50 years from now of, hey, remember when we were younger, we watched Tom Brady have a historic career. Mm-hmm. He won a Super Bowl. If he does, he's, 40? Like, he's still putting up monster stats. He's still just as dangerous at any point in the game as we saw last year, no matter how much it seems like they're down or out of it or anything like that. As long as he's still healthy, he's an incredible player. And I have an appreciation for greatness. Whether you love players or hate them, that's how I feel about it. I've always felt like that with Michael Jordan, LeBron, Kobe, in basketball. When it comes to football, definitely Tom Brady stands out as number one for sure. I always put Peyton Manning up there because he was so amazing to watch, and just how he manipulated the team, calling audibles, things like that, making smart plays, making great passes. Just watching historic greatness is one of my favorite things, and one of the things I appreciate more than anything. That's what comes to mind immediately for me.
I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, it's funny you say that, because there's that I don't know if you've seen it. I would imagine you have at this point. There's that feature on Facebook where you have that on this day option where it shows you posts from years past on this day. And it's funny that it was either today, yesterday, or 2 days ago. It was relatively, it was recently, where one of my Facebook statuses years ago was I wish people wouldn't hate Brady as much because we're witnessing greatness. And you can tell your grandchildren about this. And that's the way I look at it. I look at it as, like, you need to – I feel like – and you need to – people need to do this with their lives. People need to do this with situations. And people need to do this in this situation with sports, is you need to clear your mind, step back, and just look at it as a – emotionless situation, because what we're witnessing with Tom Brady is probably will not be done ever again. I mean, this is his 8th Super Bowl, I believe. He's won 5. He's lost 2 because he lost 2 to the Giants.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is his 8th Super Bowl. I mean, really? This organization had no Super Bowls before he got there. They win this one, they're tied with the most Super Bowls ever. I mean, think about that. Like, that's unbelievable. And oh, by the way, he came back in that game on Sunday, Zach, without Julian Edelman and without Rob Gronkowski. They're 2 best players on offense.
True.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. Tom Brady, definitely the greatest of all time. I enjoy watching him play, and it sucks that they're playing the Patriots in the Super Bowl. It will make it better if they win, but it's going to make it really difficult for them to win because Brady's on the other side. But I tip my hat to him. Look, he's a Michigan alum, so I always got to throw the Go Blue shout out in there when it talks to Tom Brady. Yeah, good stuff. I thought that was that'd be kind of fun just to kind of give just our first thoughts when thinking of this Super Bowl matchup.
Yeah, good little wrap up there as we're heading into that point in the season with the Super Bowl coming up here.
Yeah, we'll break the Super Bowl all down in depth next week with our preview, and we'll look back at the NFL season that was, and look back at our predictions, what we got right, what we didn't get right, surprises, not surprises, all that kind of stuff. Studs, duds, the whole thing. We'll have a nice show next week, and that's all I got, Zach. Go ahead and wrap us up, man.
Thank you so much for listening to the Lifelong Rivals Sports Podcast. We really appreciate it. We've changed some things up based on some of the feedback we've received, so we'd love to continue hearing your feedback. As we continue to build this platform with our podcast, it's very helpful to us if you can share it with the people that you think would be interested. We'd really appreciate it. Thank you so much, and have a great week.